Excellent. Hi, Nick. So, Terry, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for giving up your time this afternoon to come and chat to us about your life, the universe, and everything. And of course,
Yes,
5 Minute Theory podcast.
So I'll mention that at some point.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm sure. But for anybody who doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your journey. What did you do before you were a driving instructor?
All right. Okay. So I went from being a joiner when I left school, worked on building sites, until the recession hit. I forget what year that was now, but the last one.
2000.
That one. And then I went to work at McDonald's, and I decided to work there to get some money in and work some warm over Christmas. And I wound up staying there for 5 years,
Right.
running some stores. From there, I then quit because my wife got multiple sclerosis and got taken quite bad. And they were making my life harder, essentially. So I took up professional gambling for a year, and then became a driving instructor.
Oh, hang on a minute. Just rewind. hang on just a second. So, well, I'm interested in the professional gambling thing as well, but I'm also interested in McDonald's. Now, I don't know a great deal about them, but from what I hear, they have pretty good training.
Yes and no.
Okay.
The principles are there for good training. The problem is, and again, I'm going back nearly 10 years now, so it could have changed since, well, it has changed since then. But at the time, it was very much, we do this, this, and this. And it was all about coaching, teaching. What were the four? I think I had coach, teach, role model, and something else. So there were four things that you had to work around. But you didn't have the time to do it. They were that focused on labour and reducing staff costs. Right. The training was pretty poor at times, but the principle was there to it.
Well, that's just something that I've noticed. We had quite a few people who came, through LDC and in our training program, who had been with McDonald's, and their people skills were pretty good and fairly well defined. So that's that. I was interested to watch. I watched The Founder. Have you watched that yet? About the guy who started McDonald's, or the guy who took over from the two brothers that started McDonald's?
No, I did go on a bit of
wow,
a bit of a fetish about Ray Kroc, and I read up on him and read his biography and all that kind of stuff. I've not watched The Founder yet.
Yeah, not a nice person, it would seem.
No,
but you're not going to get on at that level with it, by being super nice. Well, I don't know. Who knows? So then, professional gambler. What on earth made you want to do that?
I mean, professional gambling is probably not the strictly correct term. It's probably more matched betting. Essentially, it's betting on every conceivable outcome of a football match to gain profit. And at the time, it was quite profitable, hence being able to live off it for a year.
Right.
But it's not ideal long term. And actually, we're in the middle of the Cheltenham Racing Festival, and this is the first year in probably about 20 I haven't placed a bet.
Right.
A slight withdrawal sometimes there, but
so
I've got wiser things to spend my money on. Yeah, wiser things to spend my money on than.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm fascinated with it because there used to be a guy that ran a company in Pontefract that used to valet our cars. He was fantastic at doing it. And he gave it up to become a professional gambler and is doing quite well. So if you're watching, Jason, hello. So why driving instruction? What drew you to that?
The biggest thing, looking back now, was I do like working with people, coaching people, training people. I've always enjoyed that, and I did that at McDonald's, and I did overhaul the training system at some of the stores I was at. And even before that, on building sites, they always had apprentices with me. I was always working with those guys. And when I was at McDonald's, for example, as I went up, I found that rather than working in smaller groups, I'm working in large numbers, and I enjoy that a lot less. I would much rather train a couple of people in close quarters than big numbers. And when I was trying to decide what career to go down, I'm thinking, where do you train people one-on-one? Driving instructor. And by doing that, I can also keep the lifestyle I've been accustomed to, being my own boss. Because again, I've been at home for a year as this gambler. I don't want to work under anyone else anymore. I want to be it wanted to be my business, and so those two things carried in
Right.
quite nicely.
And does it help with the helping your good lady with her stuff? Was that
Yeah, I mean,
part of it?
to be fair, she's had. I mean, there's no cure as such, but she's had some treatment that's improved the standard of living. So um, it's good having the flexibility to be at home when I need to be.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And I always, on the first lesson with my guys, I always talk to them about my wife and explain, look, there will be the odd cancellation, or there not will be, there might be the odd cancellation because of hospital appointments, or and it don't happen often, but I always like to forewarn them with that. But
Well, I
yeah,
think if you're
having the
honest,
flexibility works.
yeah, I think if you're honest and open with people, they appreciate it, don't they?
Yeah.
So the other thing I know about you, you look very healthy for a vegan.
Yes, I am practicing vegan. I'm still not perfect. I still forget I'm vegan sometimes and have a bite of someone's pizza and then, oh crap, this is meat. Get rid of it right quick. But yeah, vegan, and it has made me healthier in the sense of my diet was abysmal before. So by going vegan, and this isn't why I did it, but by going vegan, it's made me change my diet and look at what I was eating anyway. So it's actually improved what I was eating. So even though I'll never be a 10 out of 10 in terms of what I eat diet-wise, before, or probably a 2 or a 3, so I've gone up significantly anyway.
But it takes pasties out of the equation straight away, doesn't it? Pasties
Well,
and sausage rolls, the staple of driving instructors.
You can still get them from Morrison's, so I'm all right there.
Brilliant.
You get the vegan ones. Although it wasn't that long ago, well, God knows when I had my last lesson, but I was pacing up and down Morrison's getting annoyed because I couldn't find anything to eat vegan-wise. And I must have been in there about 5 minutes storming up and down before I realised I'm walking up and down the front veg aisle. I'm like, literally, all of this is vegan. Apples, bananas, it's all here. But you don't associate like an apple with being vegan because it's just, you have it anyway. You've got to think you've got to have something special, but
Well, I tried the vegan thing for a while but I found it hard. I'm vegetarian. I found the vegan thing hard, and when you're looking for information, and the reason that I mention this is when you're looking for information, I think people are interested in it. But when you look for information on it, boy, there's some. If people think that driving instructors are smart, go and join a vegan group and see what happens in there. It's just, I've got a cat as a pet, so therefore I can't be vegan. It's like, but I know that you've started, well, because I joined it, your group. You want to tell people about that?
yeah, I've got a vegan group. It's now, being completely honest, I've been in a bit quiet in it for the past couple of weeks myself, but I've got a nice little community in there. And I started that for the same reason that you just mentioned. There's a lot of vegans, excuse my language for idiot, knobheads, assholes, whatever you want to call them. And the same reason as you, I got kicked out of one because I argued with someone saying I am vegan. And they were arguing saying I wasn't because my wife isn't vegan. And apparently I'm not vegan because I live with a meat eater. And I thought, I'm not having this. I opened this group for vegans that it's just quite accepting. And I've got meat eaters in there. I've got people that have dairy. I've got people that are, like you said, interested in it, but aren't necessarily practicing it, and maybe just want to have a bit more of that. Almost,
yeah.
I think the term is flexitarian. It's something like that, where you're just reducing the amount of meat you eat and increasing the amount of green stuff. And it is a really friendly little group. Again, it's just people sharing meal ideas and opinions. But
Rachel's just typed that it's easy to be vegan and easy to be unhealthy. Salted caramel magnums. Yeah.
yes.
That's the thing. You're allowed chocolate. You're allowed chips. But I would urge anybody who's interested in playing it. I would urge you to join, Terry's group, because it is a very friendly place, and you can ask questions and not get shot to pieces for it. The helpful vegan, isn't it? The Facebook.
Yeah,
it's in my favorite.
Helpful vegans. Yeah.
So that takes us to the driving instructor end of things. So how long ago that you trained? So was that 2008, 2009?
No, a lot less than that. I think this is this is year 5 now. It'll be 5 years in August this year.
So note to self: pay attention. Listen.
I mean, it's one of those things. I'm 38 and I still feel like I was 20 yesterday.
Well,
time flies.
I'm 64 and I think the same. So, did you enjoy the process of becoming an ADI?
Again, you'll probably hear me say that this a lot through the course of this, but yes and no. There's always aspects you enjoy and aspects you don't enjoy. I love the teaching, that's all, the coaching, or whatever you want to call it, the one-on-one aspect of it. That's where the fun comes. It's not even from the passing, it's seeing someone make that bit of progress. But the training side of it, I got on really well with my trainer, which is always a good thing. It was assigned because I trained with the notorious Red driving school. But I got given a trainer straight away, and he was brilliant from day one, and he made it enjoyable for me. I did pick up some of his not so good habits, but you know,
I won't ask you about
that. Yeah, probably a good idea. But yeah, I did enjoy the training side of it, and learning and developing and learning new skills and beating out the old stuff. But one of the best and worst things for me when I started the training was seeing my driving faults. So it was almost the part two, if you like. It was seeing the bad habits I picked up that I'd never even realized. And a lot of it was attitude, not necessarily bad attitude, but the wrong attitude, or, no one ever comes from that junction. I don't need to look there, and it gets highlighted to you.
Can't be anybody coming this time of day.
Yeah. Or seeing the dustbin bins out, I'm not realizing there might be a dustbin around the corner. Inside joke. Yeah.
Also, you're a city dweller, in and around the city of Leeds, where it's wacky races there. It just is.
Well, I mean, I'm on border between Leeds and Bradford now. I'm in Baildon, which is sort of just up road from Ilkley, if anyone knows that. But so it's out of the city, and I've got a lot of country around me. But yeah, I was born and bred in Leeds, in the hectic areas. Yeah. So yeah.
So did you join a franchise to start with, or did you qualify and then go straight on your own?
Yeah, I went with Red straight away.
Okay.
I was. I can't really remember why I chose Red, if I'm being honest. They're probably just the first one that bobbed up in my Google machine. So, they look good, I'll go with them. They're a big name, they must be good. One of them that people fall into. When we franchise, I had no problems with them until August last year when I left. And it was just the right time for me. Sure. I wanted to reduce my overheads, and I watched your video last Friday about the franchising stuff, and it was really interesting when you're talking about when people leave franchise and drop their prices straight away. I left and put mine up, so I actually had a higher rate than Red. I think it's a bit lower now in this area because I've kind of kept them. I mean, they went up this year, but they pretty much stayed the same since. But yeah, I think I put them up so just above Red on prices, which didn't lose any customers.
Good for you. I mean, it's people often leave franchises and then think, oh, well, I'm not paying my franchise fee, so I can afford to reduce my prices. Well, it kind of defeated the object. So TC Drive was born.
TC Drive, and it's been a good. Well, they want August. This is where I'm getting mixed. I want August last year. Was it August last year? I don't know what year it was.
It must have been the year before.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think now. You wouldn't have got much
28
year belts.
What year is it? It's 2021, isn't it? 2019. I left Red. It don't feel like it that long, obviously. But yeah. So 20
year of amnesia in the middle.
Yeah. 2019 TC Drive were born, and then March last year it got postponed for a year.
Yeah.
And it's been fun since. Done a lot since then. I've enjoyed it. Developed the business. Nice steady flow of customers. Got some. I'm going to say new initiatives. There probably weren't new initiatives, but they were new to me. There were things I'd thought of, but I think I've seen other people doing them as well. That maybe I couldn't have done with staying in a franchise. I've got my own Facebook group for my students, which. I'm in there a lot. I tend to do lives in there once a week. I'm posting there every day, asking them questions, answering their questions. It's a really friendly thing, and it's focused in a weird way less on the driving side and more on the attitude side. they'll come in and rather than asking what would you do at this junction, they'll be asking me about how would they handle these situations with this driver, or my dad does this. It's a lot more around the attitude side of it. I'm updating my website at the minute. Something else as well. My mind's gone blank now, but yeah, there's a few things I've done. I've been quite heavy on social media as well in trying different things out there and different types of posts and different lives, and it's all just been focused around students.
Yeah,
we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I know you've been, because we chatted, I know you've been doing lots of that kind of stuff. I know you've got lots of content planned for your website. Is it tcdrive.co.uk?
That's the one, yeah.
.com. And eventually there'll be some stuff on there that might interest people that they might want to have a look at and eventually pay you some money for.
Yeah, well, I did a theory. That was the thing that I'd forgotten. My theory test course, I did a theory test training course, which probably going to tie us in nice to the next podcast, but I'm guessing. But the theory test training course came about because I did something a couple of years ago called the Theory Test Challenge. This was a Facebook group I opened that were accepted 50 people to come into. And it was training people on the theory. It was free, but it was training people on the theory course. It was done over 7 days. And every night I went on, I did a live and I were talking about one aspect of the theory, whether it was like the attitude or whether, an aspect of it. And then we had the Q&A session after, and every night I'd give him some homework to do for the next day. And if he didn't do it, he got kicked out of group. And I did 2 of these. And I think there were 15 people that made it to end both times. And they all went on to pass the theory. And I got some customers out of it, which wasn't actually the intention. But the reason I did it at the time was I was just getting fed up of people doing mock tests, which is, you'll know, I'm going to learn my theory by doing the mock test over and over and over again and memorizing 50 questions at a time, and then everything will be fine. I'm not learning from it. So I did this, and these guys went away, and I say some of them went on to be my customers. And they did have a really deep understanding, and they've actually kept on top of it. And when I did the second one, I actually had some of the ones that did the first one come back because they wanted to broaden and enjoy it. And that was a genesis for this course. But the excuse was I never really had the time, and I could have found the time, but it was the excuse. And then obviously with this latest lockdown, I found the time to do it and produce that. So it is there up and running, and it's linked onto the website now, but I am going to be putting more of it onto the website as well.
It is difficult sometimes with learners to get them to focus on the theory, because they're just, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. There's on one of the YouTube things, you see me with Claire, and she's failed multiple times. And I said, look, why you're not logging in? Because we've got an internal one at LDC, and it's really, really good. I said, you're not logging into that. I've got this app, I really like it. Remind me how many times you've failed? Just, so how good is this app? You've failed 4 or 5 times, and of course we get it on a proper program, and she passes straight away. But we were just marking time waiting for tests, so it does get frustrating. So that then, of course, leads you to the theory podcast, which is what we talk about.
What I will say is, I had a lad yesterday. A lad messaged me asking about lessons, and I kind of said, "Yeah, it's probably going to be July if you want to come to me." But I said, "Look, I've got some resources I can send your way." So I sent him a podcast, the theory test course, linked to my group. I said, "You're welcome to come to our group." And his reply, "Well, I'm not going to bother with them. I've got my 4-in-1 app. I'll just stick with that." And I'm like, all right, you've got to pay for the course, but I've just given you 2 free resources there that you could use and actually learn. And I think that sums up the issue there. But yeah, that's where the podcast stemmed from as well. In one thing I emphasize a lot to my guys is rather than doing like 3 hours on a Sunday and then nothing else, spend 5 or 10 minutes a day, and again, this goes back to that theory test challenge. One of the things I'd said to my guys, something I try and stress a lot, is don't do a mock test every day. Maybe set to do a mock test perhaps on a Sunday, and make a note of the questions you either don't know or you get wrong, and then spend the week learning them. And 5 or 10 minutes every day going over them. Then do a mock test on Sunday and see the difference. And you'll notice that you start to get more, but you also start to understand it. And I kept banging on about just do 5 or 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes. which then kind of got me towards this podcast. Well, I'll produce 5 or 10 minutes worth of content then.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't want to call it a 5 to 10 minute podcast. So I went with the 5-minute theory.
No, and it's good. And, I mean, the thing is, if there are instructors out there that are having these struggles with the learners, and we all have them, where they'll just not do what we want them to do, then, the podcast might be something that might just kick them into gear. So where can they find it? I mean, on all places where you can get podcasts, but what do they type in to find it? What goes into this?
You can type in 5-minute theory, or you can type in TC Drive. It will bob up with both of them. Oddly enough, for you saying that though about the learners, I'm actually finding it's having quite an impact with drivers, especially people that haven't driven for a while. I know one lady in particular who messaged me and said, this is brilliant. So I've not driven in over 12 months, or barely driven over 12 months. This is refreshing me, and I feel more confident going back. So it's hitting an audience I didn't expect it to.
So I mean, that's. So do you think you might have it morph into other things, or is there a second podcast coming?
That's a good question. I want to keep the 5-minute theory as essentially 5 to 10 minutes around the theory. I try and keep every episode below 10, and I try and keep the actual theory discussion to 5 minutes. Yeah. Because, if we're being honest, especially if we're putting ourselves in learner's shoes, it's boring. When you say to your learners, read a highway code, there's the highway code, go read it. Well, I know we don't phrase it like that, but that's how they see it. And it's not exciting to them. Keep it to 5 minutes. And what I'm doing every time, or most times, is I'm answering a specific question on the theory. So one that I know is a problem, or one that's been asked of me, I'll expand on that and talk about that. And there'll be little different aspects of it. But I'm also going to branch out. So I've got a podcast, a bonus episode coming out next week, which is about returning to lessons and what you can do in preparation for that. And I think I'm doing a bit of edit on that now because I'm not happy with it, actually. So I'll tweak that. I wanted to have that today, but it's not going to be. But yeah, it's about what you can do in preparation for returning to lessons, whether it's practicing your theory, or whether it's returning to your instructor, or having a first instructor, or whatever it is. And that's going to be a longer one. So that's the process for this podcasting. Like I say, it's the 5-minute aspect is going to stay, because I do think that works. And that's from liaising with my students that are listening as well. But there will be special
bite-sized chunks.
Exactly. But there will be specials coming out, maybe monthly, something like that, where I go into a more in-depth on differences. It might be like driving test tips or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. As for another podcast coming out, yes, there will be. One that'll be, well, I've got 2 in mind actually. One that is aimed at ADIs and PDIs, which I haven't finalized the format for yet. But because there's a few out there. I know you had a chap on the other week who does the driving instructor development podcast. I forget his name now.
McDonalds.
Yes, I like his podcast. I think that's really good, and that's a few weeks ago. Yeah, that's something I was considering when I was thinking about doing this a few weeks ago. Then I stumbled across his podcast. Thought, right, well, I don't want to tread on those toes, so I'm coming away from that a little bit. And I know that the guys at the ADI, and I can't even say it, ADI NJC, have their podcast, and I think I'm after something in between those two. Okay. I think there's room for somewhere in between them, but that's going to be a little way down the line. And then there's another one that's going to be completely away from ADI stuff, probably around film and horror movies and that kind of stuff. So the genesis of ideas there going forward.
So I mean, I'm just looking at the date on my computer. If you're going to do one that's about going back to driving lessons, which looks like it's going to be April the 12th, you haven't got much edit time left.
No, it'll be out next week. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can tell that we're getting close to that 12 because the inquiries are starting to go up now, and then people are getting annoyed when you're saying, "Yeah, I can't get you in on 12, I'm afraid."
Why not?
Yeah.
You mean you're not just sat at home waiting for them to ring? Is that not how that works?
It makes me laugh. I mean, I can see why, because thinking back to when I was a wee nipper, I wouldn't have been planning 6 months in advance for my driving lessons. So I understand it, but it still amuses me.
Just a question that's just popped up here from Nick Booth. Thanks for the question, Nick. Terry, any thought of moving towards the practical side of driving? Maybe some information on practical skills that you would learn on driving lessons? You could start with a podcast on what to expect on your first driving lesson. 5-minute practical skills, which is sort of what you were talking about, but that's interesting.
It is. Sorry, go on.
No, fire away, fire away.
It's something I've been thinking about. It's a tricky one because I feel that kind of thing works better in video format. I think talking about the actual practical stuff works better when you can see it demonstrated, which is where the YouTube channel comes in, which is what I'm also going to be releasing. Well, I mean, it's out there now, but there's nothing on it. Going to be released further down the line. But I think that's probably going to, I mean, I could double up. It's an idea I've had. So, you know, the 5-minute theory, but release 2 episodes a week, the 5-minute theory and the 5-minute practical. But it's getting it to work. And also, how can I put this? We're all driving instructors. We've all been in the Facebook groups. We're in one now where you ask for an opinion, you get 17 different ones and everyone's right. So there's a bit of a resistance there from me in the sense of if I go and say, you don't need your gas to set off, there's going to be a lot of people saying, you do, it's wrong, don't listen to that. And then the abuse. And I think that I'd need to do it in a way where it's put across as, this is optional. You know, it's not mandatory that you do it this way, but this is my preference. But then I'm kind of watering down what I'm saying. So maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit.
Well, you've got to be comfortable with what you're doing. But I hear what you're saying. It's, you know, I quite often, you know, with my learners, when I'm teaching them, we start by moving the car with no gas on, and then they learn how to use the gas, and then they make decisions because you don't always need to do that. But, you know, driving the essential skills, unfortunately, says you must set the gas there and find the brake.
Yeah.
But that's you know, in modern cars. Anyway, let's not get into that. That's a little bit too contentious.
No, it's a good question. It's a good idea, and I appreciate that. And it's something I am considering, but it's something I'm going to have to play with a little bit to find something that I think is going to suit others, but also works for me as well.
I think it's interesting that, you know, I'm a musician, and quite often musicians will tackle things from a different angle and do things a different way. If somebody does something a different way to me, I don't assume that they're wrong. I just say, oh, what made you do that? What does it bring you? What's the benefits? Whereas in the driving instructor world, if somebody does something a different way to you, you automatically assume they're wrong. Says who? There's lots of ways of doing things, and just because somebody does it different to you doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them right either. But, you know, we should be open to this sort of stuff. And as an industry, we just aren't. We have this overwhelming desire to be right all the time, and nobody's right all the time. Sorry, my missus is, apparently.
Yeah. Well, you know where your bread's buttered.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's odd, the things that polarize people. It really is. I mean, I put a Facebook post up, must have been about a week ago, and it was after a conversation with my wife. And I said to her, do you mind if I ask you some questions, like around the driving, around theory, just to test your knowledge? Just as it's not critical, I'm just interested to see what current drivers know and don't know. And she was just getting them all wrong. And I said, so would you mind if I post about this on Facebook? And I went on and I posted, saying, look, I asked my wife these, and she was fine with it, by the way. But I said, I asked my wife these questions. I think one was like a blue 30 sign, what a national speed limit on dual carriageway was, and what a dual carriageway was. I think it were those 3. And I'm trying to emphasize in this post that if you don't know what those are as a current driver, there's a chance you're going to cause a problem. You know, if you don't know that blue 30 sign's minimum speed limit, I said, what would you do if there's a police car behind you? She said, I'd slow right down to about 25. I'm like, yeah, right. Well, there we go. And I'm kind of putting and the abuse I got from that post, I got called a smart ass, annoying, and what was the other one? Control freak. That amused me. She said, I'd never been married to you. You're just a control freak. I'm like, I literally asked my wife permission to do the post. That's like the least controlling thing I could do. But it's interesting, the stuff that polarizes people.
In terms of working together, we've got a long way to go as an industry. It's, you know, I have sensed I was just chatting with Chris Benstead the other day, and it was what I have sensed is the industry has drawn together a bit more through the lockdown. But I suspect that by 9 o'clock in the morning on April the 12th, we'll be scattered asunder again, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's been fascinating to find out your journey. It's a lot more. There's a couple of little dark corners in there that I don't know about. The professional gambling. Thanks for sharing your story with us. It's been fascinating, and the best of luck with the podcast in its form as it is, and with any new versions that you bring. And thanks for taking the time to let us know about it.
No, it's been good to come on and good to talk about it. And it's yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what becomes of it. It's there to help people, and you know, I mean this sincerely. I hope that you guys share it with your students. I think I'm on like a one-man mission at the minute to get people actually paying attention to theory. So yeah, it'll be nice to get a few more people taking that on board, I think.
Well, there's a couple of the guys have already said they've sent their learners that way. I mean, it's lovely to hear your passion coming through. You know, you're obviously enthusiastic about it, and I wish you the very best of luck with it. And thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us today. It's been a blast.
Yeah,
we'll catch up with you a bit later.
We'll do another one about gambling at some point.
Yeah, we'll give teachers all out of it. Bye bye to the boys and girls.
See you later.
Cheers.